Have you ever felt totally lost in a sea of conflicting advice about polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS? Yeah, you are not alone. Today, we're going to cut right through all that noise and give you some clear, science-backed strategies to manage PCOS with what's on your plate. So let's start with a feeling that might be, a little too familiar. It's that incredibly frustrating moment when someone just says, "Just lose weight," like it's the easiest thing in the world. This quote really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? It captures that feeling of just being completely overwhelmed and asking, okay, but where do I even begin?
And I want to tell you, that feeling of being overwhelmed, it's completely justified. PCOS is not some simple one-size-fits-all condition. It's a really complex, chronic syndrome, and it looks different for everybody. That's a huge reason why it's so misunderstood.
And listen, the stakes here are really high. We're talking about so much more than just irregular cycles. Our source material points to a 3 times higher rate of anxiety and depression, a staggering statistic that over half of those with PCOS will develop type 2 diabetes by the time they're 40, and the fact that it's the leading cause of infertility. This is exactly why getting clear, actionable information is so critical.
So, this is probably the most important point, and I really want you to let this sink in. It is not your fault. It's time to release any of that guilt or self-blame you might be carrying. This isn't about a lack of willpower, and it's definitely not a personal failing. It's all about understanding the complex biology at work inside your body, and that's exactly what we're going to get into right now.
So, let's get to the why. For about 70 to 80% of people with PCOS, the main driver behind so many of the symptoms is a metabolic condition called insulin resistance. And really getting a handle on this concept, that's the first step toward getting back in the driver's seat.
At its very core, insulin resistance is basically a communication breakdown. Your body is trying super hard to deliver energy to your cells, but the message just isn't getting through. It's kind of like your cells have put on noise-canceling headphones, and they just can't hear the energy delivery guy knocking at the door.
And this key and lock analogy from our source material explains it perfectly. So picture this. Insulin is the key, and your cell is a locked door. Normally, the key fits, the door swings open, and energy, or glucose, gets inside. But with insulin resistance, it's like the lock is all rusty and jammed. The key just won't turn. So even though there's all this fuel waiting right outside, the cell is essentially starving. And all that extra fuel and all those extra keys start building up in your bloodstream, causing all sorts of chaos.
Okay, so we get the problem. The communication is broken, the locks are jammed. So now what? Let's talk about one of the most powerful and honestly most overlooked tools you have to fix it. It's not some crazy diet or a magic pill. It's fiber. And here's why it works. Fiber acts like a sponge in your gut. It slows everything down, including how fast sugar from your food hits your bloodstream. This gives your body way more time to handle that sugar, preventing those huge spikes in glucose and insulin that are driving the PCOS symptoms.
Now, according to the dietitian in our source material, this is how much fiber most people eating a standard American diet get every day. 10 to 15 grams. Just keep that number in your head for a second.
Because the real goal for managing blood sugar, for fighting inflammation, and for tackling that insulin resistance with PCOS is more than double that. We're aiming for 25 to 35 grams every single day. That huge gap you see between those two numbers, that's where the opportunity is. That's where the magic happens.
So, how in the world do you close that gap? Well, I promise you, you don't have to eat cardboard. This slide just shows how delicious and easy it can actually be. We are talking about adding in superstars like beans and lentils. And get this, a single avocado has almost 13 grams of fiber. Things like chia seeds, nuts, and even just picking a whole grain bread that has 3 or 4 grams of fiber per slice can make a massive difference.
Okay, now let's put all this together into a really practical, everyday strategy. Forget about complicated calorie counting or weighing your food. We're going to build the perfect plate, a super simple visual guide that takes all the guesswork out of your meals. This is it, the perfect PCOS plate. And it's a total game changer because it literally flips the typical plate on its head. Instead of a tiny little bit of broccoli as an afterthought, half of your plate, a full 50%, is loaded up with non-starchy vegetables. Then a quarter is for your quality protein, and that last quarter, that's for those awesome fiber-rich carbs we were just talking about. It's simple, it's visual, and it is incredibly effective.
And I want to be clear, this perfect plate is not about some miserable, short-term diet. PCOS is a chronic condition, right? So the goal is to create a healthy, sustainable way of eating for life. And a huge part of that is busting some of the biggest myths out there about PCOS and nutrition.
All right, let's just tackle the big one right away. This is probably one of the top questions people have. The internet is screaming at you to cut out all dairy and all gluten, forever. But what does the actual science say? Let's get into the nuance of it.
So the key takeaway here isn't that dairy or gluten are automatically bad. The real problem is often what's done to the products that contain them. Think about it. A super sugary, fruit-on-the-bottom yogurt is totally different from a plain, full-fat Greek yogurt. A slice of that squishy white bread is not the same as a hearty, whole-grain sourdough. The focus really shifts from eliminate everything to choose better quality.
And at the end of the day, the best advice is this. You have to listen to your own body. If you cut out dairy or gluten and you feel amazing, well, that's fantastic. But for a lot of people, the real win doesn't come from just cutting out those two things. It comes from the simple act of starting to read ingredient labels and just paying closer attention to the quality of their food in general.
And this all leads to the ultimate mindset shift, the one idea that can change everything for you. Getting a PCOS diagnosis doesn't have to feel like a life sentence of restriction. You can look at it from a totally different angle. It can be an opportunity, a really powerful reason to build a foundation of incredible health that's going to serve you for the rest of your life. It can actually become your superpower.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this one thought. Don't think about changing your entire life tomorrow. That's overwhelming. Just ask yourself this. What is one small, powerful change you can make? What is just one of those fiber superstars that you can add to your plate this week to start this journey?